The desert of silence is not just a place on a map. It is a moment in your life when everything stops. The world around you becomes still, the noise fades, and you are left alone with the truths you've tried to outrun. In Arizona's endless wasteland, travelers who approached the Last Motel always described the same experience. A sudden hush, as if the desert itself was holding its breath, waiting to see whether they would break or awaken. That silence wasn't empty. It was filled with everything they had been avoiding. The same happens to you in your journey. There comes a point when life forces you to pause. Not to punish you, but to strip away distraction so you can finally hear the voice you've ignored for too long. Silence is not a void. It is a mirror that reflects what you really feel, what you truly want, and what you must confront before you move forward. People fear silence because it reveals the weight they carry. When there's no noise, no chaos, no routine to hide behind, your thoughts grow louder. Doubts echo. Regrets whisper. Hopes you abandoned begin to stir again. Standing in the desert of silence means standing face to face with yourself. It's uncomfortable, sometimes terrifying, because it forces you to admit what's hurting you, what you've outgrown, and what you've been pretending doesn't matter. The travelers who found the Last Motel often arrived because they were running from something. Their past, their failures, their fears, the pressure of becoming someone they weren't ready to be. But the desert doesn't let you run forever. It slows you down, empties your surroundings, and leaves you with the one thing you've avoided: confronting your own truth. In that stillness, you begin to realize that the things you've been running from aren't there to destroy you, they're there to teach you. The silence becomes a guide, not a threat. It clarifies your mind, sharpens your instincts, and helps you understand what truly matters. Every fear you've held onto becomes easier to identify. Every heavy feeling you've carried becomes easier to name. The desert doesn't judge you. It simply holds you long enough for clarity to surface. In the stillness, you recognize the choices you've postponed, the dreams you dismissed, and the inner strength you underestimated. This moment of stillness isn't weakness. It's preparation. The desert removes the noise so your purpose can speak louder. But silence is not just reflection. It is recalibration. It allows you to reset your direction. The travelers who survived the Last Motel never did so because they found safety. They survived because the silence forced them to see what they needed to change. When you stop resisting the quiet and start listening to it, you uncover the courage you didn't know you had. You realize that the pause in your journey isn't the end. It's a turning point. The desert is harsh, yes, but it is also honest. It strips away illusions and leaves only what is real. And what is real is that you have far more strength than you've acknowledged. You have endured storms, heartbreaks, failures, and nights that felt endless. Yet you're still standing. The silence reminds you of that resilience. It reminds you that even when life forces you to stop, it is only clearing the path for your next step. The desert of silence becomes the beginning of transformation. It's the moment where you stop running, breathe deeply, and face yourself without fear. It's where you realize that you are not lost, you are being reset. You are not stuck, you are being prepared. In the vast emptiness, your true voice finally rises, steady and undeniable. And in that voice, you find the courage to continue your journey with more clarity, strength, and purpose than before. The desert teaches one truth with a sharpness nothing else can match. If you pause too long, the heat will swallow you. Progress isn't a choice, it's survival. In the story of the Last Motel in Arizona, the travelers who stopped moving, the ones who clung to comfort, safety, or routine, were the first to vanish into the silent emptiness of the desert night. The motel wasn't cursed because of ghosts or shadows, but because it punished those who allowed themselves to become still. Every room whispered the same eerie warning: motion is life, stagnation is surrender. And this keynote exists to remind you that in your own life, the same principle applies. When you stop growing, stop learning, stop chasing what makes your spirit burn, you begin to disappear, not physically, but piece by piece, through lost ambition and forgotten dreams. Imagine you step into one of those dimly lit motel rooms. The air is heavy, not from dust, but from the weight of stories of people who stayed too long. Clothes still folded in suitcases. Notebooks with plans never started. dreams scribbled and abandoned. You can almost touch the despair that built itself into the walls. These people didn't fail because they weren't strong enough. They failed because they stayed still. The world around them kept moving forward while they held on to excuses, fears, and doubts. They told themselves they would leave. Tomorrow. But tomorrow is the easiest promise to break. Tomorrow is a mirage in the desert. Something you can see but never reach. And slowly, each person's motivation faded until they became echoes in a place no one returns from. Think about your own life and the moments where you paused for too long. You knew you needed to make a move, take a risk, start that project, leave that toxic place, break that cycle, chase that dream, but something in you whispered to wait. Not now. Later. Soon. That whisper is the true haunting. That voice is your personal Last Motel, trying to pull you into a room where time seems slow but actually steals everything from you. Every moment of hesitation builds invisible chains around your future. Every second you spend standing still gives life to the shadows of regret that eventually grow strong enough to surround you. And when regret becomes stronger than hope, that is when people truly disappear. But the desert also shows another truth. Those who keep walking, even when the heat burns and the road feels endless, eventually reach something better. Those who refuse to stay in the comfort of a small, safe room find horizons that others only dream of. The traveler who survives the Last Motel is the one who checks in, feels the pull of stillness, but chooses to keep moving anyway. They don't let the quiet tempt them. They don't let fear convince them to settle. They know that even the faintest step forward is a victory over the haunting force of standing still. And when the desert tests them, they walk anyway. When doubt whispers, they walk anyway. When darkness stretches behind them, they walk anyway. Your life asks the same from you. To keep moving, to push through the moments when the world feels too heavy, too uncertain, too overwhelming. To take the risk even when the outcome is unclear. To trust that progress, any progress, is better than comfort that slowly kills your ambition. Because the truth is simple and terrifying. If you stop moving, you stop becoming. And you deserve more than a life that's in a metaphorical motel room, surrounded by what could have been. The road ahead might be harsh, lonely, or unpredictable, but it is real, alive, and full of possibility. Keep walking, keep fighting, keep becoming the person you were meant to be, because the shadows only catch those who stand still. In the Last Motel, the mirrors were never just reflections. Anyone who stared into them long enough claimed they saw versions of themselves they didn't recognize. Tired eyes they didn't know they had, dreams they'd forgotten, and sometimes faces shaped by fear instead of purpose. The mirrors didn't show ghosts. They showed the truth people avoided. And that is the heart of this keynote. You must confront your inner shadows if you want to rise. The scariest part of any journey isn't the world around you, but the battle happening inside you. The motel simply exposed what people brought with them. Their doubts, their guilt, their unspoken failures, their regrets sitting quietly behind their smiles. Every reflection whispered a message. The danger isn't outside. It's the part of you that refuses to grow. Imagine walking into a silent motel bathroom. The flickering bulb above the mirror gives off a sickly glow, barely illuminating your features. You approach the sink, splash water on your face, and raise your head to look at your reflection. But instead of confidence, you see hesitation. Instead of strength, you see uncertainty. Instead of a fighter, you see someone who has been running from themselves. You didn't come here because of the desert. You came because you weren't ready to face the truth about who you'd become, who you've avoided becoming, and who you still have the chance to be. That's what the Last Motel symbolizes, a place where every hidden fear you tried to bury finally rises to eye level, demanding your attention. Most people fear shadows because they assume something terrible hides inside them. But what if the shadow you fear is simply the version of you that never tried? The one who stayed silent when they should have spoken. The one who quit before they saw results. The one who dimmed their own light because someone else told them they weren't enough. Those shadows have weight. They cling. They wait for the moment you're tired enough to stop fighting. And places like the Last Motel, those moments of stillness in life, are where shadows grow thicker. When you stop believing in yourself, when you let insecurity win, when you pretend everything is fine. While you're slowly breaking inside, your reflection becomes something that frightens you, not because it's supernatural, but because it's honest. But here's the truth the motel never wants you to realize: your shadow only has power if you look away from it. When you stare it down, when you acknowledge your weaknesses, and confront the pain you've buried, something strange happens. You become stronger. The reflection begins to change. You start to see the fighter you forgot you were. You see someone capable of growth, someone capable of rising, someone capable of rewriting their story. The person staring back at you is not your enemy. They are the beginning of your comeback. And the moment you accept that, the mirror stops being frightening and starts becoming your weapon. Growth always begins with honesty. You can't escape the parts of you that hurt. You can't outrun your failures, your fears, or the mistakes you try to forget. But you can choose what to do with them. The travelers who survived the Last Motel didn't escape because they were fearless. They escaped because they faced the truth inside themselves without flinching. They looked into the mirror and saw everything holding them back, and instead of turning away, they decided to fight it. They chose courage over comfort, and that is why they walked out of the darkness, while others stayed trapped in their own reflection. Your life demands the same bravery. Look into your own mirror, your own truth, your own shadow. Acknowledge the pain, the insecurities, the broken pieces you've been trying to hide. Not to fear them, but to heal them. Because transformation begins the moment you stop running from yourself. If you confront your inner darkness, it will never have the power to control your future, and the reflection that once frightened you will become the strongest version of who you are becoming. In the Last Motel, everyone heard it. The weight of silence that pressed against the walls long after midnight. A quiet so heavy it felt alive. Travelers described it as a hum, a pulse, a presence that seemed to listen more than it spoke. And yet, this silence held one of the most powerful lessons. You must learn to listen to your instincts, especially when the world around you goes dark. In life, just like in that lonely desert motel, there are moments when the noise of others fades and all that remains is the whisper inside your chest telling you what you need to do next. But people often ignore this voice. They drown it in distractions, bury it under obligations, silence it with fear. This keynote is a reminder that your instincts are not your enemy. They are your guide, the compass pointing you toward who you are meant to become. Picture yourself walking down one of the motel's long, narrow hallways. The carpet muffles your footsteps. The lamps flicker. The air feels still, as if the building itself is holding its breath. You pause, not because you saw something, but because something inside you tells you to. That split second of intuition is the same force you feel in real life, when you know a path isn't right, when a person doesn't deserve your trust, when an opportunity feels like it's calling your name even if no one else understands why. Most people ignore these moments. They push past them, convinced that logic is safer, that instinct is unreliable. But in the motel, every time someone ignored their inner warning, they found themselves drifting deeper into the maze of rooms, losing track of doors, losing track of time, losing track of themselves. Your instincts exist to protect your path. They alert you to danger before you see it. They push you toward possibilities before you fully understand them. When you silence them, you walk blindly into places that drain your energy, break your confidence, or tempt you to become smaller than you were meant to be. You stay in jobs that suffocate you. You stay around people who belittle your dreams. You accept less than you deserve. And slowly, without noticing, you become like the guests who vanished in the Last Motel. Still present on the outside, but faded on the inside, disconnected from the fire that once drove you. But when you start listening, truly listening, something changes. The silence no longer feels threatening. It feels clarifying. The fear that clouds your choices begins to thin. You start recognizing signals you ignored for years. You know when it's time to move on. You know when it's time to push harder. You know when the world expects you to shrink but your heart expects you to rise. Instinct becomes a form of navigation, a way to survive the darkest hallways of your life without losing yourself. The travelers who made it out of the Last Motel weren't the bravest or the strongest. They were the ones who trusted the quiet voice inside them that said, This isn't the right room. Don't go down that hall. Keep going, even though you're scared. And that is the lesson the motel tried to teach. The darkness outside is never as dangerous as the doubt inside. When you trust your instincts, you walk with purpose, even in places where the path is unclear. You move with confidence even when shadows stretch across your future. You make decisions that elevate you instead of trap you. You stop mistaking fear for failure and start recognizing it as a sign that something important is waiting on the other side. Your instincts are not random. They are the echoes of your courage, the hints of your potential, the warnings and invitations your soul sends you. They are your protection and your power, guiding you away from places that would break you and toward places that will transform you.